So let's go over the gem links first. They're very, very similar to the original guide. There's just a couple of changes I made. They don't have to go in these particular slots. We're not running anything where slots need to be, or gems need to be in particular slots. They can be anywhere that you can fit them in. So we will start with our helmet, and in there we've got our totems. Now this is a change from the main guide because we're not running a VAAL war chief, we're running a normal war chief. After testing, I actually think this is way, way better. You still get a little bit of a damage increase, and you don't have the issue that your VAAL war chief is taking the same souls that your VAAL lightning strike needs, and it's double the time for your VAAL lightning strike to recharge. And that's the one thing I found difficult about Cirrus and 10-way invitations, is that your VAAL lightning strike is a lot of your DPS, and if it's twice as long to recharge, you're going to get in trouble. This version, you've got your VAAL lightning strike available several times during an invitation, and also a couple of times during a long boss fight. So in here, it's exactly the same. We're running multi-totem, Ancestral War Chief, Ancestral Protector, and Culling Strike. So whenever you get to a boss, you want to drop both totems, and then your VAAL lightning strike, and then you attack. Now what I would say is, once you get more damage and you're feeling comfortable, you can drop the War Chief and drop the multi-totem and just run an Ancestral Protector. It's much easier than having to pop two totems up. Saves you a bit of time, and popping two totems up in hectic content can be the difference between life and death because you're standing in place for too long. In the shield, this is where we keep our auras. You don't need them in here. Right, Vitality we don't use. So we're running Grace and Anger. In here, we've got our movement skill setup. We've got faster attacks, Withering Step, Whirling Blades, and Life Tap. Now, it's not ideal for Withering Step to be linked to faster attacks because it uses a bit more mana, and that's why we put in Life Tap. We don't have a lot of mana in this build. We've got 97 unreserved mana. So putting Life Tap on these two skills means it uses life instead. Because we're always leeching, you're not even going to notice that these skills use life. In our claw, we've got Precision. It's level 17 at the minute, but you should be able to level it all the way. We've got Herald of Ice, which we can fit in. And we've got a Flame Dash just for getting over gaps that Whirling Blades can't cover. So in the gloves, I'm running the wrong setup. I'm running Molten Shell because of the video I made earlier with the armor version. This still wants to be a Mortal Call, increased duration, cast when damage taken, and then Blood Rage. I use Blood Rage for mapping, but you don't have to because it can make your life drain a bit. I don't use it when there's reduced life regeneration, and I try not to use it in invitation because it can get you in trouble. For mapping, it's fine. As long as you keep Blood Rage max, it's not going to get affected by these cast when damage taken links. In the 6th link, we're running Increased Critical Strikes, Inspiration Support, Cold Damage, Lightning Strike, Nightblade Support, and Trinity Support. Now, I'm running an anomalous VAAL Nightblade Lightning Strike. I wouldn't bother. Basically, I had to buy the gems for 20C and then VAAL them and hope that it turned into Lightning Strike. This was earlier on in the league when enchants were expensive. We'll come on to the price of them later, but you can pick them up for 10C if you look for the right base. And that covers off all of the gems. That's all that you need. And then what you're doing for bosses, as you'll see in the video, is just before you get to the boss, you're dropping both your totems. You then pop in your flask, then your VAAL skills, and then you attack. The only other addition to the build is this Rock Gut Flask. This is amazing for Raider. I can't believe I didn't think of it before. Essentially what this does, it's a Quicksilver Flask, but when you use it, if you've got Frenzy Charges, it'll consume those Frenzy Charges and give you Onslaught for 3 seconds per charge. Because we generate Frenzy Charges all the time when we're killing and hitting unique enemies, that gives us Onslaught for 21 seconds, which is amazing on a boss. It gets a bit tricky to use it to get the perfect time, and I'm not very good at it. So to be honest, I don't bother, but what you should do is you'd pop all your utility flasks, you'd then attack the boss to get your Frenzy Charges, you'd then use the flask to get your Onslaught, then drop your VAAL Lightning Strike. But it doesn't really matter because as soon as you hit the boss, you're going to get Frenzy Charges anyway. So if you accidentally use the flask and remove your frenzies, as long as you've got 2 charges, you can then just activate it again once you've got full Frenzy Charges. I tend to just use it like I use a normal movement speed flask, and I haven't had a problem, but I'm sure there's an optimal way to use it. So now what we'll do is go onto the gear. I've actually bought most of this gear today, so we can even go through the prices of exactly what they cost and how you can go about finding these items. So we'll start with the helmet. The helmet I'm running is literally 1C. I imagine I found it, I think in the campaign, very early on anyway. It's got nothing on it, it's just life resistances and some suppressed spell damage. What you're going to need to run is a VAAL Lightning Strike enchant. Now there's 2 versions. There's one that pierces 2 enemies and there's one that pierces 3. If you just look for an armor evasion base with +2 pierce, at the moment they're 5 to 10 chaos. Doesn't matter what stats are on it, all you'll need to then do go into essences, use something like a Shrieking Essence of Greed, nothing too expensive. Roll it on the helmet. Roll a couple to see what you can get, but ideally you want life and resistances. Suppression somewhere is ideal because we're going to need a little bit to cap it off. This shield I bought for 10C. What you're looking for on the shield is chance to block as much as you can and then life. You might not be able to get resistances because the shield might get too expensive, but there's other areas we can pick up resistances. The reason I've got 13% chance to block is any higher than that and the price seemed to skyrocket to like 40 or 50C. You need an open suffix to craft avoid elemental ailments because the node that we take in the tree in the previous build, we don't really want to take in this. Your amulet just needs anger reservation. Ignore the 3% mana modifier. I was just qualitying this up for a different build. You want an amulet with divine judgment allocated. Divine judgment is dirt cheap. It's about 4C for the whole thing. It's over here on the tree and it is a brown, teal and black. And that's 50% increased elemental damage, so that's a massive boost. In here, we want to cram as much as we can, but because we need anger reservation efficiency, you might struggle to get a really good amulet. You want life, resistances, and you might need to find some stats on it, because what I've had to do is end up taking stats on the tree that are kind of wasted points. But the only mandatory thing you need is anger mana reservation, because it's going to mean we can run all our auras. For rings, you want a Shaper ring item level 80 with Assassin's Mark on hit. Doesn't have to be level 12. If level 8 is much cheaper, go for that. When I looked on trade, these are about 45C with some res and an open prefix, or life and an open suffix for res. So you should be around 45C for the ring. And then to go with it, you need Mark of the Elder. This is an Uber Elder drop. It's coming down in price every day. So if you're watching this video a week later, it's probably even cheaper. At the moment, they're 53 chaos. Don't worry about the roll you get on it. So here we can see that the damage roll goes from 60 to 80, life from 6 to 10. If you can find a decent roll one for a reasonable price, sure, buy it. But at this stage, it's not going to make a huge difference. So just buy any ring you can find. You can always divine it later if the high rolled ones are really, really expensive. The body armor cost me 12C. If you've got money, don't buy like a corrupted 6-link. All I did was search for colors, 3 green, 2 blue, 1 red. I start at 10 chaos. This one was the best one available under 15 and it was 12C. What you really want here is something defensive. So either Redeemer chest with 15% Fizz taken as cold, or you could go for some crit chance, you could go for socket attacks. If you've got money, get something that's going to do you some good rather than corrupted chest. This is just to show you that the build can perform on a 3 to 3.5x budget really, really well. The boots are literally just life and resistances with an open suffix to craft the missing elemental ailments that we're missing. They don't have to be two-tone, just try and get as much resistances in there as you can, along with life and movement speed. This belt would be about 5 chaos. It's just life, resistances, not even a lot of life actually, and some strength. The reason I packed out the strength is just to make sure I don't have any issues with strength requirements. Now, the gloves. These are, I imagine, pretty good gloves because I can actually craft another res on here instead of accuracy because I don't need accuracy. But this is just what I rolled when I chaos spammed for these gloves earlier in the league. All you need is strike one target and then as much res and life to make balancing easier. So if we have a look on trade, they're about 40C with an open prefix for life. If you're lucky, you might get some resistance and an open prefix. And again, these are going to come down and down as more people are farming and picking up these gloves. Like the base, for example, are now 5C. When I bought them, they were like 40C just for the base. All you need is +1 strike additional enemy, but you have to have it. And then we'll just move on to the claw. This is pretty bad claw, to be honest. I think this is probably worth about 20C. What you want is T1 attack speed, T1 or T2 crit multi, and then some crit chance and some lightning damage. Now, it sounds like that might be expensive, but I've got one for sale at the moment that is almost identical. Got 25% crit chance, 37% multi, 21% attack speed, lightning damage, increased fizz, and quality craft, and I'm not selling it for 30C. So your claw is going to be 20 to 25 chaos. And I'm pretty sure that covers off all the gear. The only other expensive item is going to be your Lethal Pride jewel. So we'll come onto this and then we'll go over the tree. So Lethal Pride at the moment is 45C. Again, as people start farming Legion, it's going to drop and drop and drop. The way this works, you'll buy one and you'll have no idea what attributes that jewel has on it. You'll stick it in your tree, and what this does is add stats to your tree. So for the travel nodes, it'll give you 2 strength. For the small notables, it'll give you 4. And then for the major notables, it'll give you a random stat out of a bunch of, I think it's about 20 stats. You can get some really good ones. What you're looking for defensively is physical damage taken as fire. I haven't managed to roll any. So your ideal combo is 10% chance to intimidate enemies on hit for 4 seconds. So they take 10% increased attack damage, which is massive. You're always going to have that active on bosses. And then you're looking for this one, which is chance to deal double damage. That's the reason I've taken these nodes. You may not need these to cap suppression. If you don't, and the stat you get from the Lethal Pride is bad, you could probably spec out of them and go somewhere else on the tree. So what we'll do is go through the tree now. It's very similar to the build guide. I'm level 94. What I would maybe basis trainers will say 91, because you can easily get to 91 in late yellow maps, early red maps fairly comfortably with really pants gear. So the tree will be in the POB. The only things I want to point out is we take block nodes here, we take the damage and the block nodes here, and then we take 1% chance to block attack damage per 5% chance to block on equipped shield. And because we added block onto our shield, we got 39% block on the shield. So that's a really, really nice boost. This one here, you do not need to worry about. I took that from a previous build where I was trying to get 80%. Block damage through various things, and we don't even have enough damage for this to be worthwhile. Block, sorry. I think with the way I'm running, we cap out at 75% block. We do. If you had a better chest, you could craft block on that, which means you might then want to take that node. So that node is free. You don't need to take that. This node here, if you can keep your int sorted out, is free as well. You don't need to take that. So that already takes the tree down to 92. And then what I would do if you need to is just remove, I believe we have a life somewhere. Yeah, 50 life here. Remove that. That takes it down to 91. And that's easily a level you should be able to get up to with a decent setup of budget gear. We've also got this extra life node here. Get rid of that. That takes you to 90. It will be in a POB. I'll do a level 90 POB with what we've just discussed here. But we'll just run through the masteries. So here we've already said we're taking block per 5% chance to block on shield. That you're not going to take. We need precision 100% on here to fit our manas in. We need grace on there again to fit our manas in. That we need as well to fit all the auras in. And then here we are taking critical strike is increased by chance to suppress spell damage, because we should be hitting 90 to 100%. That's a big boost in critical strikes. Here we really have to take this because we've got nowhere else that we've got it on the tree or on gear. And that's just leeching life and mana to make sure we don't run into mana problems. And as I say, this one here, 50 life, you can drop it. We've got plenty of life on this build, or enough to farm this sort of content anyway. So that covers off the tree. So with the Lethal Pride jewel, I think I forgot to mention, if you get a jewel and it's got all rubbish stats on it, all you do is you take it out, use a Divine Orb on it. That will change the random number here. You'll put it back and then all the nodes will have changed. There isn't a way to know what number gives what stats, so just buy the cheapest uncorrupted. And I have to stress, it's got to be uncorrupted because you can't divine it if it's corrupted. And just see what you get. Even if it's not brilliant, just wait until you get, you know, another couple of Divine Orbs and go again. The other option, when Lethal Pride jewels get even cheaper, maybe they're 20, 25C, buy a second one and just keep divining that and then check and see what you get. So you've got one, let's say this one for me is decent and I'm probably not going to get better, but doesn't mean I don't want to get better. So I'll buy a second jewel, and every time I get a Divine Orb, I'll divine it, stick it in and see if I can get lucky and maybe get 5% chance to deal double damage and an Intimidate. And that really covers off the build. A lot of this comes down to playstyle. So I'll just quickly, before we close the video, go through what you're doing when you're mapping. And it's really, really simple. You're whirling blades through the map, as you can see in the footage. You want to keep your flasks up all time because we get evasion from them. We get damage, consecrated ground, we get crit chance, and we get our onslaught from the rock gut. So literally, there should never be a time when you're mapping when your flasks aren't up. Now, because we're ailment immune, we've got a good choice about what we do with our flasks. Life flask, stick with bleed. We don't have a corrupted blood immune jewel, and normal bleed can also cause problems in some content. I run a sulfur flask. This is totally optional, really. There's probably a better flask you can run. I like the consecrated ground for bosses, and also obviously like the increased damage. And I've got actually quite a good roll here. I've got chance to gain a charge on critical strike, and we're always critting, and 46% increased evasion rating, which is really good. Our Jade Flask, we've got reduced effective curses, 47%, that's really big, and it's got increased duration. Really on these flasks, you want to be rolling increased duration where you can, because you can get some of the flasks up to like 10 seconds. And then the last one we've got is a diamond flask. We've got increased duration and increased attack speed. I probably should roll these and get better, but I'm doing absolutely fine with it, so I'm not too worried. Pantheons. I'm still actually collecting my Pantheons. I don't know why that's selected. It should not be. So I'm going to go Solaris, because we don't get hit very often. So reduced LE damage if we haven't been hit recently is very nice. We've got chance to avoid area damage, and we've got increased fizz reduction when there's only one enemy nearby, so big bosses. We also will get these crit nodes and chance to avoid ailments from critical strikes, which are pretty rubbish. We don't really need the ailment from critical strikes because we don't take ailments. But I still think it's the best one, but feel free to choose whatever mage you like. For miner, I think it's situational on the content. I normally run with this just because you're always going to get cursed in maps. You might not always have a flask to get rid of it, so 30% reduced duration is nice. We also get 50% reduced reflected damage and 50% chance to reflect hex. So this is huge, to be honest. What this also allows you to do is you can become immune to reflect just by taking one mastery in the tree. So let's say you wanted to go and do Uber Zeri. All you would do is tick this mastery here. You'd unallocate maybe this live one or whatever. And then you go in here and you'd select the 60% reduced reflected elemental damage taken. And then if we go and combine it with Ugal, it's 110% reduced reflected damage. So even if there's over reflect, we're still not going to get killed. And if it, I don't know if you do get over reflect. If you do, still shouldn't be an issue. Your other option, which I did before I got the Pantheon, is just Sybil's Ament Ring in the left slot, because that stops 80% of LE reflected damage. But it means you're going to have to replace this, and then that combo drops down. So I'll definitely go for the Pantheon option. So before we close off the video, I just want to mention a couple of more bits that I totally forgot about. So we'll go into Path of Building, and it's really just the jewel sockets that we collect. So here, I would use these to get stats that you need to balance that you might be missing on either gear or the tree. Intelligence is very likely to be it. You should have no strength problems. Your lethal pride should give you tons of strength. You don't even need a heavy belt really if you've got a lethal pride setup. So here it's going to be intelligence, 7% increase maximum life, and any crit multi you can get, whether it's one-handed melee weapons, lightning skills, elemental skills. Just search whatever's the cheapest. I mean, I bought these early in the league and they weren't expensive, so I can't imagine they're too much money now. And it's the same here. This one's actually terrible. And if I had a chaos to my name after buying all this gear, I would replace it, but I don't. And there's loads of places to improve. So this build will easily clear your T14 to T16. It will do all the league mechanics. It will kill Conquerors. Cirrus, it will kill, but it will probably feel quite bad because I don't think the DPS, when we haven't got all our buffs up, is probably not enough to burst it. You can do it. It's probably a big 8 to 10 minute Cirrus fight. But this is not what this build's for. This build is for getting all your currency together to either improve this build or work on your next one. So that's the level 91 tree for the budget version, and the POB will be in the video description. I don't think there's anything else to cover off. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments. As I've bought all this gear today, it was 300, just over 300 chaos, no, just under 300 chaos, which is about 3.5x. But I bought it in quite a rush, so I imagine you could get it cheaper. Or if you've got a bit more money, you could, you could look for more options. You can maybe look to get something like extra spell suppression on here, or maybe go for a Shaper Shield with the increased res. You could certainly get a better 6-link. The helmet's absolute garbage. There's tons of improvements you can make from this. But even if you don't, I've already shown this gear in this setup can farm T14, T16s out with some dodgy mods and Conquerors, and also the boss in Scourge. So I hope this helps, because I know there were some people I've seen on forums saying they put 5 or 6x into Lightning Strike builds and it still felt ass in tier 11 maps. And it's really just to show you how to go about building a character that can then go and farm, get some currency, and then really, really get some upgrades working on the build. Hope this helps. Thank you very much for watching. Take care and see you in the next video.